So 1, 2.
Like an L.
All right, Ryan.
Good evening, I am Jack Fujii and welcome to the 9th session of Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. Focus on Agriculture is a one-credit course offered by your College of Agriculture, Forestry, and Natural Resource Management here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And we come to you live every Thursday evening from the television studios located in the Mookini Library here on the UH Hilo campus. Before we go on, if I could have the Elmo, please. If you have to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me by mail at UH Hilo, College of Agriculture, Forestry, and Natural Resource Management, or CAFNARM, 200 West Kauili Street, Hilo, Hawaii, 96720-4091. You can also get a hold of me by phone at 974-7393. or by fax at 974-7674. And for those of you on email, you can email me at jfujii@hawaii.edu. And of course, for those of you taking the course for credit, your local recipes are due in my office no later than March 31st. That's a Wednesday, so that's the last day of March, so make sure that you get your recipes into me, otherwise your letter grade will be docked 1 letter. So make sure you get that recipe into me, preferably typed, and all the instructions for the recipe are on the syllabus. Since we are coming to you live at approximately 8 p.m., those of you in the viewing audience, and of course those of you here in the classroom, can call in and ask questions of our guests this evening. We have another very interesting presentation for you. We hope that you don't change a channel and stay with us. This evening we're featuring Kaikodo Restaurant, or Restaurant Kaikodo, and that's here in downtown Hilo. My guests this evening are Chef Marc Fennelly and Ryan Angulo. So I'm going to turn the class over to the chefs, and let's start cooking.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody. We have 4 signature dishes from the restaurant, from Restaurant Kaikodo, that we're going to prepare for you this evening. And we'll go through them one by one. The first is made with ahi. It's fresh ahi from the local waters. It's marinated in a achiote marinade. Achiote is a seed from the annatto tree. It's sort of a musty, nutty flavored seed. It's bright orange in color. It's used also to color cheeses and margarine and various things that have an orange color that we buy in markets. It has ancho chilies in it also, which is a poblano chili that has been smoked and dried. It has a little Hawaiian twist, which is lilikoi. We put some lilikoi juice in there. Paprika, honey, kaimu honey, and garlic. So all those things are blended together, and then the ahi is marinated in the achiote marinade for about a half an hour. What's unique about this recipe is it fuses a Mexican kind of cuisine, the chilies and the achiote, with Hawaiian ingredients also. The tuna comes out, or the ahi comes out, a very bright red after it's cooked. So what we're going to do now is make the marinade. This is achiote. It is ground. It's a fine powder. Bright red, as you can see. We take a cup of achiote and put it in a blender or a food processor. And then we also have the ancho chili puree. This is ancho chilies that have been rehydrated, meaning made wet, from soaking them in water, hot water, until the ancho chili is soft. And then it's blended to a smooth puree. This is the ancho before it's rehydrated. It's kind of a soft chili. If it were in its natural form, which we can get in Hilo at the farmer's market, it would be bright green, a dark bright green. Anyway,
So about how many chilies do you need to make that paste?
we probably need
About 6.
about 6.
6? Okay.
Yeah. And then we add the lilikoi. And then we have paprika,
Okay.
Red chili.
About how much of each of those ingredients do you put in?
We're putting in 2 tablespoons of paprika, 2 tablespoons of red chili, 3 tablespoons of kosher salt.
Okay. And about how much of that puree, lilikoi
That was
puree?
2 cups.
2 cups.
2 cups of puree. And then we have 3 tablespoons of honey.
Okay. And for those of you who just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, and my guests this evening are from restaurant Kaikodo, and that's right here in Hilo. And we have with us Mike and Ryan, so go ahead.
And then we have 2 tablespoons of chopped garlic.
Okay.
And then we have 2 cups of oil,
That's any kind of
canola oil.
Canola, okay.
And then Ryan's going to blend this until it's smooth.
Okay. And so how long has the restaurant been opened?
Kaikodo has been open a year. It's a year this month.
There we go.
All right, so here we have our ahi. It's
Okay.
portioned into roughly 6 to 8 ounce portions.
All right.
And it'll marinate for half an hour. So we're going to do this now. Let it marinate. And then we're going to come back to it in a half an hour and cook it.
The longer you marinate it, the better, or can you
The longer
overdo
you
it?
marinate it, the more intense the flavor will be.
I see.
I don't know if that's necessarily better, but it gets bright red. You only want the marinade to penetrate it a little bit, or you'll lose the taste of the ahi.
I
So
see.
you don't want it to be all marinade.
So about 30 minutes. would
About
be
30
fine.
minutes. It could go longer, but I wouldn't do it for overnight.
Okay. And Ryan, you're opening up some fresh oysters, right?
Yes.
Maybe our overhead camera can zoom in on you and you can show us how to open these oysters up.
All right. I like to protect my hand with a rag because
Okay.
they tend to have jagged edges, and protect yourself from the net. And I usually go in from the back where this little lip is right here. You pop up the oyster, scrape along the top, removing the top shell. Try not to damage any of the meat inside. Then you check for any shell fragments that might be in there, sand, scrape that out. And you're trying not to lose any of the oyster juice that's inside, because that's where all their great flavor comes from. And I just flip it over to check again for shell, and that's it.
Wow. So how many of those do you do a night?
It depends. Sometimes we do a lot.
We serve these oysters primarily raw, because these are very small oysters from the Pacific Northwest, and we have them flown in especially for the restaurant.
Are they that size normally? Are they baby oysters, or is
No,
that
it's a strain of
Special.
oysters called Kumamoto. So they're a Japanese oyster, and
I
they're highly prized. They're probably the best oyster that you can get, across the United States. Anyway, everybody's favorite oyster is the Kumamoto.
Do
So
they
what
have
we're gonna,
those available in the supermarket, or is it kind of hard to get?
I believe since we started having them brought in, that the distributor Suisan is selling them to other
I
retail
see.
places also. You may be able to get them at KTA. They do sell them at Suisan in town.
Okay.
Anyway, we're going to lightly cook them
All
this
right.
evening, really lightly with a Korean barbecue sauce, which I guess since we've introduced to oysters, we should move on to that
Okay.
instead of the dumplings.
All right.
So the oysters, Ryan's opening the oysters. I'm going to get the ingredients for the sauce. The interesting thing about this particular recipe is it is a Korean inspired recipe. It comes from a restaurant in Los Angeles that I went to in probably the early 80s called the Woolayok, which is a very famous Korean restaurant that has locations in Los Angeles, New York, in Korea, and Seoul. And anyway, they do a sashimi salad that had this amazing sauce on it, which was a raw salad with a white fish. And I sort of tried to duplicate that sauce after I had it at the restaurant. And this is what I came up with. And then it slowly evolved. It had several different incarnations. It was used on a chicken salad. It's been used on ahi. It's been used on shrimp. And anyway, the latest application has been on these lightly cooked oysters with a Italian bacon, a cured Italian bacon, which is called pancetta. So we are going to make the sauce now. And let me grab the ingredients for that. And Ryan, you can talk about something while I'm doing that.
Let's see. The oysters, we usually present them on a bed of salt. So it kind of mimics oysters presented on ice. And these are always good with a little squeeze of lemon on top, which is how we serve them at the restaurant. And what else?
Here you go.
Oh, maybe I
So-
can talk about the next one.
Okay. So this is a barbecued oyster with crispy pancetta.
Pancetta.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds
It
delicious. And this is something that's served at your restaurant, correct?
Yes, and Mike's been serving it for quite a while now. It was served at the last restaurant that we worked at together in San Francisco.
Oh, so you folks have
place-
been all over the place.
Yes, I worked with Mike about 5 years ago for a little over a year and a half when I lived in California.
I see.
And then he called me up back in May, I guess, to come out here and help with this restaurant.
So how
Okay.
long have you been cooking, Ryan?
Well, I guess I kind of started when I was 16 as a dishwasher,
Uh-huh.
chopping things and whatnot. And then I went to school after high school for a couple of years, and I've been doing it ever since.
And
So
then-
it'd be about 10 years, I guess, now.
And Mike, you've been in the business for quite some time then.
I have. I started in Santa Fe, New Mexico
Oh, wow.
as executive chef of a restaurant there called Santa Cafe.
Uh-huh.
And then I was there for 5 years or so, and then I opened a restaurant in New Orleans
Wow.
called Mike's on the Avenue, which is very successful. And then from there, went to San Francisco and was executive chef of a restaurant there called Mecca. And then I ended up in Hilo.
You saw the light and came to the island.
I did.
All right.
It's time to chill out a little bit.
No regrets, right?
No regrets.
Okay.
Okay, so it's these things, not these things. Where's the? There we go. So I'm going to talk Ryan through this recipe. One
Okay.
thing about a lot of my recipes is they have too many ingredients. So this is one of those that I just said, oh, a little this, little that, little this, little that, little this, and then it suddenly came into being. But my cooks always tease me about putting too many things in each recipe. So this recipe has 16 ingredients, as Ryan often lets me know. Anyway, so Ryan's going to whisk it together. Normally this is done in a Cuisinart or a blender, but we're going to whisk it together right now.
Okay. And
So
this
we
is
have the garlic.
this
Pardon
is
me?
an Asian barbecue sauce.
It's a Korean barbecue sauce.
Okay, Korean. Okay.
So we have garlic, ginger,
Okay.
a tablespoon of garlic, a tablespoon of ginger, and 2 tablespoons of cilantro.
Okay. 2 tablespoons of garlic, 2 tablespoons of ginger, 2 tablespoons of cilantro.
That's right.
Okay. And then,
And then we have lemon juice,
Okay, about
6 tablespoons.
Okay.
And a half a cup of olive oil.
Okay. Does it make a difference whether you use extra virgin olive oil or regular olive oil?
Well, the flavor of extra virgin is a little bit more intense and more olivey, so it would be lighter with the regular olive oil, but we like it with more of that intensity.
I see.
Actually, we're going to put the oils in at the end.
Okay.
Because we are whisking it by hand, it will emulsify better if the oils are put in at the end.
Okay.
So moving on, we have 1 tablespoon of red onion.
Okay. It's all diced up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some shallot.
Okay, about 1/4 cup.
1/4 cup of shallot.
Okay, all diced.
Yeah. A half cup of shoyu.
Okay. Wow, this is going to taste good.
It is. A 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne.
Okay.
Half a tablespoon of chili powder.
Okay. That was a quarter
Mix.
teaspoon of cayenne.
A 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne chili.
And half a tablespoon of chili powder.
Exactly.
Okay.
The paprika's in this as well. I combined
Yes.
them both beforehand.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then we have half a teaspoon of pink peppercorns,
Okay.
which are an aromatic peppercorn. They're sort of sweet.
Okay.
We usually use Szechuan pepper for this recipe, but we've not been able to find it in Hawaii. So we've used pink peppercorn, which is very similar.
Okay.
Half a cup of brown sugar
Okay.
and a 1/4 cup of white sugar. They're both
We have both in
combined.
there.
Okay. But a little bit more. Half a cup of brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar.
Exactly.
Okay.
A 1/4 cup of tomato paste.
Okay.
Works better.
Yeah, this barbecue sauce really looks good.
And then a half a cup of unseasoned rice vinegar.
Okay. Half cup of unseasoned rice vinegar.
Vinegar.
Okay. And then the,
Now we whisk together the base ingredients before the oils are whisked in. So Ryan's going to get that smooth, get it going, and then he's going to whisk in the extra virgin olive oil as well as the sesame oil.
okay. So you want to put the oils in at the end.
You want to put the oils in at the end or it will not emulsify properly. The idea is to get it smooth and emulsified. If oil is put in the beginning, oftentimes a sauce or anything that's made with oil will separate or break, as we call it.
Okay.
I have here the pancetta, which is the Italian bacon, which is already cooked. Regular bacon could be used, but we like the Italian pancetta. It's not quite as intense as regular bacon. It's a little bit milder and softer.
Is that available in the supermarket?
It is.
Okay. And it's called pancetta.
Pancetta.
Pancetta. Okay.
Pancetta. It's an Italian word. Okay, so the sauce is ready.
Anyways, Pancetta.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to up our fire a little bit here
Okay.
and figure out which one it is. There we go. And Ryan's going to put them on. And I'll take some pancetta and put a little on each one. And then we're going to put the sauce on them.
Okay. Oh, so you just put the oysters right into the skillet there.
Exactly. These could be done in a number of different ways. They can be done on a grill, like a backyard grill, which is probably the way they taste best because you get a little of that grilled flavor going on, or under a broiler, or in a pan, as we're doing here.
So you put a little bit of that pancetta.
Pancetta. Close enough.
Yeah, okay. On the individual oyster.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you know how long to leave it on the skillet?
They will. They'll start to bubble
Oh,
and get kind of crispy. So it's a matter of personal taste. If you'd like the oyster raw, you wouldn't leave them on very long.
Okay.
If you want it more cooked, it takes a little longer.
So about what level of heat do you put
High.
that? High heat.
Always high heat.
Okay.
The hotter the better for these.
Okay.
And then Ryan's gonna drizzle those with a little of the sauce.
Oh, so you pour a little bit of sauce on each of the oysters.
Right. And you don't have to do it neatly. It can kind of go wherever it goes.
Okay.
The sauce is the best part.
Wow.
For these small oysters, you'd probably want to put on.
Taste real good.
Yeah. For the smaller oysters, you'd probably want to put on about a half a teaspoon or more if you like.
So this is one of your specialties. That's what
It
I
is.
thought. This kind of like an appetizer?
It is an appetizer. We serve a lot of these at Restaurant Kaikodo as an appetizer by themselves, as well as on a mixed appetizer sampler, which has oysters, Chinese dumplings, which we're about to make next, as well as a ahi spring roll.
Actually, it's kind of an easy dish to make. The only hard part is making your Korean barbecue sauce.
And the Korean barbecue sauce is very versatile. As I said, it can be used on chicken salad, it can be used on shrimp. It lasts a long time in the refrigerator, so it's a good thing to have lying around.
And so can you use that for like a barbecue sauce for meat and
You
things
could use
like
it
that?
definitely as a barbecue sauce for meat or chicken, anything, fish.
Wow.
It's a great sauce.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing it with us.
You're very welcome. Let me move over and see what's going on here.
Okay.
All right, we're cooking away. They're starting to sizzle.
Okay, maybe our overhead camera can go into the skillet there and see those oysters.
You want the
It's beginning to smell real good.
let's put them on?
And for those of you who just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. And this evening we're featuring Kaikodo Restaurant, and we have with us Mike Fennelly and Ryan Angulo.
Can I use a bowl for the...
And,
Yeah,
okay.
Something
And
It's okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. The next thing we're going to make is a shrimp and spinach Chinese dumpling.
Okay.
These dumplings I've been making for a very long time. I guess I started making them in Northern California right after I graduated from college. I was experimenting and came up with these dumplings. I wanted to do a Chinese dumpling that was really clean and not muddy, not complicated in flavor. I wanted to do something that you could really taste all the ingredients and not have that sort of musty flavor that a lot of Chinese dumplings have, where you can't really discern what's in the dumplings. So these are a very simple, straightforward dumpling made with fresh shrimp, spinach, ginger, green onions, jalapenos, and we make the dough, the wrappers, at Kaikodo from scratch, which I'm going to show you how to make the dough, but it's also completely acceptable and much easier to buy gyoza wrappers, which are available everywhere, everywhere around here.
Okay.
But the homemade wrappers have a completely different taste, and they're a lot lighter, and it's a much more interesting flavor. And all they are is flour.
okay.
And it's about 2 cups of flour, water,
Okay.
and I may need more water, but I don't have any more, so I want to put it in slowly, and a little bit of salt. So the dough is mixed together until it's smooth. This usually you can do in a mixer or with a mixer, with a handheld mixer, or in a Cuisinart, or by hand like I'm doing, but certainly it's much easier to do in a mixer. The dough is a very dry dough, so we mix it together until it's smooth and elastic, but it has to be fairly dry, or it's going to be hard to work with. It's going to stick to the rolling pin and stick to everything you're trying to do, and it's going to be a mess. So the way we do that is we add more flour, or if it's too dry, we add more water. Anyway, this consistency here is about the way it should be when it's done. And then we form it together, and we'll put it in the refrigerator, wrapped in plastic for an hour or so.
Okay.
And meanwhile, while that's sitting in the refrigerator, we'll begin to make our dumpling filling.
Okay. This is a shrimp and spinach dumpling.
It is a shrimp and spinach dumpling. By far, of all of the recipes that I've done, this has been the biggest seller in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in New Orleans, in San Francisco, and now in Hilo. I mean, at those restaurants we would serve, maybe 70 orders of these dumplings a night. So that's a lot. That's a lot of dumplings to be pumping out.
And you make all the wrappers from scratch.
We do. But you can use these. So, for the dumplings, we have shrimp. We use fairly large shrimp, but any shrimp are okay. These are tiger shrimp.
Okay.
And we clean them and chop them, which I'm not going to do because I've already done it.
So about you use number 5 shrimp or?
There are 16, 20 shrimp.
Okay.
So that means there are 16 to 20 in a pound.
And you use 5 of those for this particular recipe.
Pardon me?
You use about 5 shrimp?
No, that's for, the recipe is calling for a large amount of shrimp. That's 5 pounds
Oh,
of
okay.
shrimp. That's
Okay.
printed in that recipe because you've got a restaurant quantity going on there. So that
All
we
right.
can sell our 70 orders. But for the purposes of what we're doing tonight, I'm just using a small amount of shrimp. I've got about 2 cups of chopped shrimp here. The
Okay.
shrimp are peeled, deveined, and then chopped. So I put those in a bowl. And then I add spinach, which has been cooked, drained, and chopped also.
Okay.
Ginger, peeled and grated.
Okay. And if you like a lot of ginger, you put more in. If you don't like it, you can put less in, right?
You can, but this recipe is exact.
Okay.
And it's years of perfecting.
All right.
So we don't want to mess with what's good.
Okay.
That's why we have recipes.
So that's 2 teaspoons of ginger minced and
Exactly, and garlic.
and 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic.
Exactly. Some
Okay.
jalapeno peppers.
Okay, about 3 jalapeno peppers
About 3
finely
for a
chopped.
big batch.
Does that include the seeds?
It does not. The peppers are seeded
Okay.
like this and then chopped fine.
Okay.
Salt.
Okay. Salt to taste, roughly, or?
Salt to taste. Well, as I said, I'm making a smaller amount than 5 pounds. So if I put a tablespoon of salt in here, it would be way too salty. So I've just put a pinch of salt in because I'm only making this many dumplings.
Okay, so for the recipe that you gave
The
me,
recipe is exact.
about 1 tablespoon.
Yes.
Okay.
And then some green onions.
Okay. Roughly about how much would you say?
Roughly, for the purposes of the demonstration, it's a 1/4 cup. For the recipe, it's 1½ cup.
Okay.
And then I stir it together.
Okay. And this is very popular at the restaurant
It
also?
is very popular. It is very popular everywhere. So basically that's it. And then these are formed into dumplings, which we're going to do in a second. Ryan's got his oysters ready to go.
Okay.
So Ryan's plating the oysters on a bed of rock salt. The rock salt not only looks nice, but it keeps the oysters from moving around. Oysters have a round shell on the bottom, as we know. So if you try to put them just on a plate, they'll be rolling all over the place. So we've come up with this rock salt idea to hold them in place. Rock salt also retains the heat or the cold, depending on what you're doing. So anyway, those are ready to go.
Wow. That looks good.
And we have our shrimp. I'm going to move. Okay, I'm going to quickly get my dumpling dough, which is now sat for a couple hours.
Okay.
I made this earlier today.
So how long do you leave it in the refrigerator? to
Leave it in there until it's really cold. So I would say like 3 or 4 hours would be best. And then it comes together, it's smoother, the elasticity of the flour is right. So this is the way it looks when it's done. I'm going to start it, and then I'll roll them out, and then Ryan can actually fold the dumplings.
Okay.
So we cut the dough. This is 2 cups of flour, approximately 3/4 of a cup of water, and maybe half a teaspoon of salt. So we cut the dough into like equal pieces. It doesn't really matter how big they are, but we want them to be in cylinders so that we can then cut it into rounds, which you'll see in a second.
Okay.
And I had some, oh, you've got the flour.
Here's the
I guess you-
flour.
So I'm going to cut these into 1/4-inch pieces. What's nice about the homemade dough is the dumplings are slightly irregular. So when you're eating them, you know from seeing them that they're homemade, but you know from the way they taste and the way they feel in your mouth that they're homemade, because the irregularities are what your senses, your mouth senses, your tongue, pick up. So it's a much more interesting thing than eating a very uniform thing that comes out of a package that's done by machine.
Okay, can you go over the ingredients for the dumpling again, for the wrappers?
Yes, flour, water, salt.
Okay. And how much water? That was 2 cups of water.
2 cups of flour, 3/4 of a cup of water, half a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
Okay, now what I've done, I've cut them into 1/4-inch pieces. I've cut that cylinder into 1/4-inch pieces. And now I'm flattening them out just a little bit.
So that original piece is about 1 inch in diameter.
It is.
And then you go about 1/4, you cut it about 1/4 inch.
Exactly.
And then you dip
Flatten
it in
it out.
flour.
Flatten it out, toss it with flour, and flatten it out. You don't want to do too many at a time, or the dough will dry out before you get to the last one, and it'll be a mess.
Okay.
So Ryan's going to roll these out.
Okay.
A little flour on here so it doesn't stick. It probably won't anyway.
And I guess it tastes much better when you make your own from scratch.
It does, but they taste great also using the
Gyoza.
gyoza wrappers.
Okay.
Or pot sticker wrappers, any of those sort of wrapper things are okay.
Okay. But at the restaurant, it's all made from scratch. Huh?
Oh yeah.
Wow. And how many chefs do you have at the restaurant?
We have myself, I'm the executive chef. Ryan is the chef de cuisine, which means he does everything I can do. So if I'm not there, Ryan is in charge of not only running the kitchen, but he's the creative force behind the menu or all the specials. And then below Ryan, there are 2 sous chefs who both have specific areas or duties. One runs lunch and takes care of all the lunch, and the other assists Ryan in running dinner, and has also studied sushi in Japan, so he takes care of all of our sushi needs.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so as you can see, they roll out. They look similar to a store-bought wrapper, but they're a little irregular, which is what we want. We don't want them to be perfect, or we'd buy them. So that's probably enough. Enough to show you how they're done.
Okay.
And while Ryan's doing that, why don't you talk through that, and I'll get the ingredients for the sauce up here.
On your recipes, it says to use a little egg white to seal the wrappers. I normally do that when I'm using the store-bought gyoza, but when you're making these homemade ones, because they contain water already, you can just use a little bit of water and it'll help seal the dumpling.
Just put it around the edges.
Yep, just a little bit around half of the dumpling
Okay.
on top. I put about, maybe a tablespoon of filling to the center of each one, maybe 3/4.
About how many of these dumplings do you make a night, Ryan?
We make a lot because we serve about 4 per order.
Uh-huh.
So we try to prepare for about 40 orders a night,
Wow.
usually. Unless there's a party, some parties request them for hors d'oeuvres and whatnot, and then we have to make more. A lot of times we get requests for different fillings and whatnot, vegetarian dumplings, and then we just don't make the shrimp ones.
Okay, how do you fold it?
So you can do it, you know, simple. Just press the edges together into a half moon shape. Or you can do it a little more fancy and just
Oh,
curl
fold
the
it
edges
over.
over.
Ah,
And then it resembles more like a pot sticker. So it's got the fan shape on the other end, flat on one side. And that's it.
either
Pretty
way,
simple.
They taste just as good.
Yeah. It tastes just as
But they'll
good
probably
anyway.
taste a little bit better if you fold it a little more.
Yeah.
A little more love and effort into it.
That's right.
And these you just want to cook in some salted boiling water for about 3 to 5 minutes until the wrapper is a little translucent,
Okay.
but still al dente, which means still has a little bite to it, which is pretty common for most pastas.
Can you deep fry those also, or
Sure. I don't see why not.
probably healthier if you boil it in
Yeah.
water?
Yeah, they're very healthy, and the flavor when they're boiled is a lot cleaner. If you were to fry them, you get that extra added thing of the oil in there, and it changes it to more about the frying than taste of the filling. Because fried food is like that; it just tastes like, you know, it's fried, and a lot of your flavor is coming from oil rather than ingredients that are in the actual thing that is being fried. These are served with a tahini sauce. Tahini is a ground sesame paste made from raw sesame seeds. It's a mixture of ingredients. It's a pretty, tahini is available in all health food stores pretty much. So it's a pretty healthy sauce, similar to a Thai peanut sauce, but a little bit different because of the other ingredients that are used. Many of those are Chinese. So we start with garlic,
Okay.
chopped garlic,
About 1 tablespoon.
about 1 tablespoon,
Okay.
4 tablespoons of chili oil.
Okay.
The end.
Oh yeah, we'll put the oils in at the end again because
Okay.
we're doing it in a bowl. So we have 4 cups of tahini.
And
This
you
is making
say-
a lot of sauce. You could easily cut this recipe down, but this is another one of those sauces that tastes great on everything.
So this tahini you can buy at a health food store.
Yes, you can buy it at any health food store.
And,
Hold on
and
while
you,
you're doing
and
that,
you
I'm-
say that it's kind of a sesame kind of a sauce or something?
Well, yeah, because the tahini is a sesame paste, and then
Okay.
we add extra sesame oil to it,
Okay.
among other things, which Mike will get to in a moment.
Okay, so we have we have shoyu, 2 cups,
Okay.
which I'm going to pour in here. Pink peppercorns,
Okay. 1.5 tablespoons
1.5 tablespoons.
of pink peppercorns.
Right. Sugar,
Okay.
1 1/4 cups of sugar.
All right.
See, it's starting to get thick, shiny. And rice vinegar, seasoned rice vinegar. Rice vinegar comes seasoned or unseasoned. Seasoned refers to when sugar is added and salt. So it's sweeter than the unseasoned.
So 1 cup of seasoned rice vinegar.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we have our chili oil and sesame oil.
Okay.
6 tablespoons of sesame oil and 4 tablespoons of chili oil. So
Okay.
those will be whisked in now.
So whenever you make these sauces, you want to kind of put the oils in last.
Right. You do. So it stays together. You don't want the sauce to fall apart. These dumplings over here have been cooking a few minutes. I'm going to check them. They are just about done. We'll give them another minute.
Okay.
And a
So
minute
this is
or
the
two.
sauce that you're going to serve with the dumplings.
This sauce is going to be drizzled on top of the dumplings after they're cooked. And then we'll garnish it with a little bit of chopped green onions or scallions. These chopped fine.
Okay. Wow, everything's made from scratch. That's fantastic.
That's why it tastes so good. It's all made from scratch.
And now our viewers at home and our students here in the classroom, they can make their own.
That's right. Or you can come to Restaurant Kaikodo if you don't have time. Okay, so we're going to pull those out, and then we'll move on. And while Ryan's going to lead us through the next dish, the chicken.
Chicken
And
dish.
I'll focus on cooking a few more dumplings so everyone can try them and get ready to do the ahi.
Okay.
Oh, this is what achiote, which was in the ahi marinade. This is what it looks like when you buy it from the store. So you get it at any store that has any sort of an ethnic section. Particular Mexican sections would have this achiote stuff.
Okay, so Ryan's going to put together a chicken under a lava rock.
That's
Yes.
right.
Which
Very
probably needs a
interesting.
little explaining.
Go ahead.
Usually we call it at the restaurant chicken under a brick, or in Italy it's known as chicken al mentone, which just basically means chicken cooked under a weight so that the skin gets really crispy and no moisture is lost out of the chicken.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do first is get a pan pretty hot. You want it to where the oil is just about smoking.
Okay.
And
So I
have
guess
a
it's
little
very
oil here.
appropriate for Hawaii to call it chicken under a lava rock instead of under a brick.
Yep, I even have a lava rock,
Okay.
which I
Sounds
wrapped
good.
in foil for sanitary reasons.
Okay.
There we go.
Just don't take it out of the island, Ryan.
No, I won't. I've
Leave
heard
it
about
here.
that.
Okay.
So there we go. That's that. Here's our chicken. Stick on this plate. Now the chicken, normally I would season it first with a little salt and pepper, but because this is half of a chicken which we debone at the restaurant, it's been in brine because we brine most of our chicken, which is a mixture of salt and sugar and water and aromatics like chili and thyme and bay leaf, that it imparts all the salt that you pretty much need for the chicken. So it sits in the brine for about 24 hours, and then we remove it and serve it at the restaurant.
Okay.
That also tends to keep the moisture in, because everyone's always saying that they're served dried chicken pretty much. So
So what
all
part of the
chefs are
chicken
trying
do
to-
you use?
this was once a whole chicken, so we just debone it, and this is the whole half. It's the leg
Oh, I see.
and the breast.
Oh, half a chicken that's been deboned.
hmm
How long does it take you to debone it?
About 5 minutes per chicken.
Probably take me an hour.
It's pretty easy when you know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean 5 minutes is kind of slow actually. A normal butcher would probably be able to do it in 2 or 3.
Well, I hope that flame is hot enough for you. Actually, the flame where the water is a little hotter.
Oh, okay. So I could probably switch it over. I think it'll get hot enough though.
Okay.
Let's see. So with this, we're going to be serving goat cheese gnocchi, which I think is in here.
Okay, for those of you who just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. And this evening we're featuring one of our local restaurants here in downtown Hilo. And we have with us tonight Mike Fennelly and Ryan Angulo. Okay.
That works.
And Ryan is preparing for us now a chicken under lava rock. Okay, so what are we going to do now?
So now while we're waiting for the pan to get hot, I'll just explain the gnocchi dough a little bit. Gnocchi is traditionally made from potatoes, riced potatoes that have mixed with flour and egg. And I learned this recipe that's made with goat cheese. So we use goat cheese that's from Big Island Goat Dairy on the island. And it's mixed with, let me see, for 1 pound of goat cheese, it gets a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, I think, or 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of Parmesan, or 1/4 cup, and then about 1/2 cup of flour. The tricky part is that it's one of those things you really kind of have to feel the dough, because all goat cheeses vary and some have more moisture. So you have to add more if you think it needs it. It doesn't have that firmness to it.
That's about 1 pound of goat cheese, 1/2 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese grated, 1 egg, a pinch of cayenne, and a pinch of salt.
And before I go on, I'm just going to get the chicken going because that takes about 8 minutes to cook or so in the pan. So you want to take the chicken and put its skin side down in your pan.
You leave the skin on, right?
Leave the skin on because you want that crispy skin texture. Have you seen the tongs around?
Okay.
And then you just want to lift it a little bit. It doesn't need much oil in the pan. You just want to lift it, make sure that it's all thoroughly coated underneath. And then you're ready to put your rock on top.
Oh.
Just like that.
You can use the rock without the aluminum foil on it because the rock is clean, right? Because when we actually use rocks at the restaurant, they go first through the dishwasher, so they're sanitized through the dishwasher, and they're basically lava rocks, so they're from the beach, right? So they've already been thrown around in the ocean for, God knows how many years. And so they're pretty clean. So they really wouldn't do anything bad to your food. And it's a lot cooler to see the
actual
lava rock
yeah,
rather than the aluminum foil.
So you want a rock that's the kind we use for Kahlua pig when we make Kahlua pig, kind of a smooth rock. That's okay, river rock we call it.
A river rock.
Okay.
But even though these rocks are from Kalapana. They're right from Pele's most recent flow.
Venture.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move through. I have a bunch of dumplings cooking. They're almost done. And then when those come out, we'll put Ryan's goat cheese gnocchi in the water.
Okay.
And then we will go to sear the Achiote Ahi, which has been marinating now for a good 45 minutes, which is great. So it's good to go. I'm going to cut up a few lemons that we'll serve with the Achiote. Also, with the Achiote, we'll serve local Mizuna. Mizuna is a Japanese green. I'll get it in 1 second. And it's sort of a peppery taste. It's an interesting green.
Okay.
It has an interesting shape. This is all grown in our area. It's a delicate green, so we're going to put a little bit of lemon and olive oil on it to serve with the Achiote, but not too much because you don't want to break down the greens. So you dress it at the very last minute so the greens stay intact and don't become all soggy and soft. Those dumplings are ready, so we're going to pull those out. You want to grab those?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a
Full overhead camera on the dumplings
There we
there.
go. There we go. We'll use this for now.
Yeah, that's good. And we'll toss them with a little butter.
Oh, so right after the dumplings come out, nice and hot, you just throw some butter over it.
Right, a little butter. Everything's better with butter.
Oh, yeah.
And a little salt and pepper.
Okay. Just let that butter melt right over the
That's right.
hot dumplings.
Mmm.
Looks good.
So we're going to let these melt a second, and then I'm going to put them on a plate while Ryan's working on his gnocchi.
So the gnocchi, once you have it all formed, because you mix the everything but the flour together, you can do it in a food processor, you can do it by hand. It's really just personal preference.
Now
But
you spell that G-N-O-C-C-H-I.
Yep, and it's pronounced gnocchi.
I'll just, G is in George, N-O-C-C-H-I. I'll spell it out instead of pronouncing it for you.
So-
These chef terms are just too much for me. I'd rather have scientific names of insects myself. Okay, go ahead.
So this is another dough that you'd like to refrigerate for about an hour until firm, because it's kind of difficult to work with because there's so much cheese inside of it. It tends to get soft and melt. So what I've done is roll them out to about the size of a finger in width, and then about 8 or 10 inches in length, and then cut them into like little half-inch sections.
And then, Mike, what are you doing now?
I have the finished dumplings here, and I'm saucing them with the tahini sauce after they've been tossed with the butter and salt and pepper. They're ready to go. And now I'm going to garnish them with a little bit of green onions.
Wow, that looks good.
Yeah, they're really good. And there we go. Those are good to go. Put those out on our display table here.
I'm getting hungry. It smells good. That's the shrimp and spinach dumplings
That is the shrimp and spinach dumpling.
with Mike's tahini sauce. Okay. And how you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good. What I was going to do with the chicken, but it's taking a little longer than I expected to cook, was to cut up some mushrooms.
Well, maybe you can put it on that higher heat there where the water's boiling.
Yeah, it's
Or
the-
you're going to use the water some more, right?
Yeah, we're going to use the water some more, and
Okay.
it's the chicken's one of those dishes that you don't want to cook it on. You want to start it on high heat,
Okay.
but then lower it to about medium to low heat, depending on what kind of burners you have.
Wow, what kind of mushroom is that?
These are cultivated on the Hamakua coast,
Okay.
right here on the Big Island.
Maybe our overhead camera can kind of
And
zoom down.
one name for these are king trumpet mushrooms. And these other ones here are called white clamshell. It's one of the names anyway. They're also known as white shimeji mushrooms.
These
They've
are
probably
all
got
locally produced.
cultivated on the Hamakua coast,
Okay.
which is nice. So I'm just going to cut these up a little bit.
What do you call that mushroom again? The two types?
This one is king trumpet.
King trumpet,
That's the American name for it. And these are white clamshell.
white clamshells. Okay.
So these, I don't like to chop them up too much because they already had their own natural look to them. I just kind of break them apart.
And you want to use those two types of mushrooms, right? Can you use other types of mushrooms if you wanted?
You can use any type of mushroom, really. Even domestic mushrooms are fine.
Okay.
These we just happened to have at the restaurant, so I grabbed them.
Wow, it's the first time I've seen those kinds of.
They actually just started selling these at the local supermarkets. We did a little demonstration with them at KTA a couple months back, where we set up a booth for the Hamakua mushroom people and cooked them off so that people would become more aware of what they are and what to do with them. And that
Are
was
they
a lot of
readily
fun.
available or kind of hard to get a hold of?
No, they're readily available. They're a little on the expensive side. Maybe about 8 ounces would probably cost about $4 or $5.
Wow.
But
Actually,
they're
they're on
great.
sale right now for $2.99 for 8 ounces at KTA. I bought some yesterday.
oh, there you go. So
Okay.
run down to your local. Oh wait, I shouldn't
What's
say that. Never mind.
The Hamakua Mushroom Company, it's a really great thing. What they've done is they've brought many different kinds of mushrooms to this area that before they'd come along were impossible to get. Those mushrooms are also pretty much impossible to get, or very hard to get on the mainland, even in big cities like California and New York. Those mushrooms are a rarity and a gourmet luxury item. So it's really lucky that we have this source for these amazing mushrooms. And what differentiates them from domestic mushrooms is a lot of them have a very meaty flavor, and are a much more interesting flavor and texture. So they are a higher price, but they're really worth that price because they basically stand on their own to create a dish as the focus. Like you don't really need much more than these mushrooms. Ryan's serving them with chicken, as we do in the restaurant. So it's a fairly complex dish, but served with a lot of really great things. But if you just sauteed up a bunch of those mushrooms, they'd be really awesome just on their own.
Actually, our main vegetarian entree at the restaurant right now is the Hamakua mushroom sampler, which just focuses mainly on the mushrooms. And it's just about 6 or 7 different kinds of the mushrooms that they grow, done in our wok. So we have a little wok station with a really simple sauce that Mike came up with that's all vegan. And just some different fillings made with the mushrooms, a stuffed mushroom cap from them, a crepe stuffed with mushrooms and wheat meat and mung bean sprouts. So
you do have vegetarian dishes there.
oh yeah.
And then you just kind of put the mushroom right on the side.
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
just going to
chicken?
throw them right in the pan with the chicken, just to
Okay.
cook them slightly.
So does the trumpet mushroom have a different flavor from the other mushroom?
They do. They all have different flavors.
And when you put them together, it has a good combination.
Yeah, you have an interesting combination of things.
Okay.
And then we should go ahead and start
The ahi,
the ahi, searing the ahi. I don't know if we want to switch burners,
Let's do that.
switch
I'll
the
switch
chicken. Here you go.
Okay.
You want to switch the,
that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave this.
that's the hot burner, so let's put the chicken.
That's the hot one?
No, you're on the hot
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's put this over here. Speed up the process.
I'll put this one.
Last week it almost took 1 whole hour to cook eggs. Looks like we're doing a little better tonight.
Okay, so we have our really hot pan. This is a cast iron pan, but it's a grill pan. It has these this grid on the bottom, which keeps the meat or whatever you'd like to grill in a pan off the bottom surface, so it gets these grill marks, and it basically functions the same way a grill does. So it's a pretty great thing. So you don't have to have a grill going if you're doing a small amount of things, which is what we're doing. So we have this hot pan. It's really hot. Maybe you want it really, really hot.
And our ahi's been marinating about a half an hour.
Our ahi's been marinating a little longer than a half an hour, but it's fine.
Okay.
So when this water sizzles, so we know that this is really hot. It's good to go. We have our ahi.
Just want to brush it with a little oil first.
Sure. We're going to brush the pan with a little oil
Just dip a towel into it.
so that it doesn't stick. It's a brand new grill pan, and it does need to be seasoned. These cast iron pans, usually you season and use them over and over, and they're better and better and easier to work with. So Ryan's going to sear the ahi. The ahi goes in the pan. Here we go.
Ooh.
You want to
And-
sear all the sides?
Pardon?
You want to sear all the sides?
We do. We want to sear all the sides. We're going to cook the ahi to probably medium rare, or maybe a little less than that. We like our ahi somewhat underdone, close to raw or rare, because the longer you cook ahi, the drier it gets and it loses a lot of flavor. And luckily here in Hawaii, we get amazing ahi like right out of the water. So this ahi that we're using today from Suisan was, swimming early this morning, and here it is right now. And most places, fish goes through a large transporting and holding process before it comes to you or your table or your store. It's usually a few days old, but in Hawaii we can get it really, really fresh. So that's an awesome thing. So you can eat it. You can eat it really rare without worrying about it because the product is so fresh. Can we go on the gnocchi?
Yep. We will do that next. I just need a clean plate.
Okay.
Let's remove this one.
And for those of you who just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. And this evening we're featuring one of our local restaurants here, downtown Hilo. And we have the executive chef, Mike Fennelly here, and Ryan Angulo preparing several dishes for us. And how does that, the ahi and the chicken look?
There we go. The ahi's starting to, it's got its grill mark. It's cooking. The ahi, so it's halfway done. Ryan will keep flipping it when he's not working on his chicken. The chicken is just about there. Around the leg piece, it may not quite be done, but we'll just cut that off and just serve the breast for now.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And that'll be ready. That looks great. I can take care of that.
So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make a really quick, simple white wine sauce. We've got our mushrooms cooking.
I'm gonna put a little salt and pepper in.
Okay.
And then
There you go. And I'll get the chicken. I'm gonna cut the chicken a little bit so I can cut off the rare part so we can try it without the rare chicken.
That's good.
There, we'll throw this piece back in with
right.
the mushrooms, and it'll be done hopefully by the time they are.
So I'm just gonna quickly chop up some ginger just for some extra flavor. Throw that in there. I'm showing you all this because it's really important to, as well as following recipes, but it's good to just kind of improvise while you're at home in the kitchen and just kind of do whatever, as long as it tastes good. As long as you keep it pretty simple or complicated, whatever, it'll taste really great. So now we've got the nice caramelization on the bottom of the pan, so I'm going to add some white wine, and that'll bring up all that nice chicken flavor. It's at the bottom. And cook that leg through a little bit more.
Flip.
Oh, flip.
Flip.
Time to flip the ahi.
We've got a three-ring service going on here. We've got ahi, we've got chicken going, got the red chili and lilikoi marinated ahi, and we also have the chicken under lava rock.
Which is no longer under a lava rock.
No, no.
We've removed the rock. We're almost ready to eat it. Ryan's going to throw the gnocchi in to his rapidly boiling water.
It's not really, it kind of slowed down a little bit. But luckily, the gnocchi do not need rapidly boiling water.
Okay.
There's that.
So those are kind of like dumplings or something, or?
Kind of. They're basically an Italian dumpling.
Wow.
Usually made with potato or whatever.
And it's got a kind of a cheesy flavor.
Yep, tastes like goat cheese. And so I let the white wine simmer down to about half in the pan, and then I'm just gonna mount it with a little butter.
Okay.
And once our gnocchi are floating, we'll add this to it and pour it over the chicken.
Okay. Meanwhile over here we have the Mizuna greens, which I'm going to toss with some lemon juice and olive oil.
Okay.
We have our Meyer lemon, which is a sweet lemon. Usually, the Meyer lemon is available only in the Pacific Northwest. So I was very surprised when, upon coming to Hawaii, we found that we could get Meyer lemons, because they're really a great thing. They have a somewhat short season. They're much sweeter than a regular lemon, and that's why I really like them.
Okay, and then you add a little bit of canola oil to that?
A little bit of olive oil.
Olive oil, okay.
A little salt and pepper.
Okay.
We put the oil on first so it coats the greens, and it keeps the acid or the lemon juice away from the greens, so the greens don't break down, so they don't get soggy. I'm tossing them gently with my hands. You don't want to smash them with salad tongs. You want to keep them really lightly dressed. I'm going to squeeze a little lemon on. I'm trying to do with my hand cupped like this so the seeds don't get in. And salt and pepper. That's it. It's a very light dressing, very clean, very fresh. And it's a great thing served alongside of the ahi. Here comes the ahi, ready to go.
which looks about medium rare to rare,
Okay.
which is where you usually want it.
And there we have a beautiful pile of greens.
Mmm.
Looks good.
Now, once the gnocchi float, you want to let them float for about 10 seconds because they cook really quickly. If you let them cook any longer, they'll absorb too much water and turn into a big blob of melted cheese pretty much. So once they float, about 10 seconds, and they're done.
Then toss them in there with the mushrooms.
Okay, this
Yeah.
one's a little hotter. Right?
Yep.
Oh no.
No, it's fine. So we have a spoon around.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the red chili and lilikoi marinated ahi, once they're seared, then you kind of slice them up.
So you can eat them whole or you can slice them. It's a good idea, which we're not going to do because of the lack of time, to let it rest, which means let it sit a few minutes, because then it'll firm up and it'll be easier to slice.
I see.
So right now it breaks apart a little bit because it hasn't rested,
I see.
but it's still fine. So that's it. That's the way it looks.
So about how long do you want to let it rest?
Just
prior
a
to
couple
cutting?
minutes.
I see. Okay. That looks good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a very nice barbecue flavor, but not like a traditional barbecue sauce. It's a very interesting sort of Mexican smoky taste to it.
I think everybody knew you folks were coming, Mike, so we've got a kind of a full class tonight. They knew that your restaurant is one of the top restaurants here in Hilo, so.
Well, thank you. I'm glad everybody came, and I hope everybody comes in, visits us, Kaikodo, tries some of this stuff.
Usually the class hasn't been that full, but tonight it looks like a full class here.
Okay, so Ryan, go ahead. Ryan's finishing up. He's putting on some local garlic chives. So they're a Chinese chive that have a taste of garlic. We get them from the farmer's market, which is where we get a lot of our produce on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We go down and buy whatever we can get our hands on. All of our tomatoes and Maui onions and a lot of the herbs. All the lettuce is local, the goat cheese. So we try to use as many indigenous local ingredients as we can.
Okay.
So we're done.
That is the chicken. Okay, well, we've come to that portion of the class where those of you in the viewing audience, and of course those of you here in the classroom, can ask questions. I hope you jotted your question down and give us a call. The numbers are on the screen, 974-7726 and 961-9046. And for those of you who just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. And we're coming to you live this evening from the television studios located in the Mookini Library here on the UH Hilo campus. And if you have any questions for our guests this evening, we have Mike Fennelly and Ryan Angulo, who are the chefs there at our local restaurant here in Hilo, downtown Hilo. And they prepared for us several dishes, a red chili and lilikoi marinated ahi with local mizuna salad. Also, they produced for us a shrimp and spinach dumpling, which was prepared for you from scratch. And also a barbecued oyster with crispy pancetta. I think it's pancetta.
Good job.
And also a chicken under lava rock. So if you have a call, or if you have a question, please give us a call. We are coming to you live. And I was wondering if we have any callers. I guess we don't have any callers. Maybe our overhead camera can go over our dishes and we can okay, so what we'll do is we can get that overhead camera to zoom down a little bit on each particular dish, and our two chefs here can kind of explain what we have. And once we get our camera zoomed in, we'll go back to the different dishes. And our two chefs, oh, we have a question first. Okay, question, go ahead, Claire. Press the button. Let the button go.
Gnocchi
Okay.
stuff
There you
from.
go. What was the question?
Where's the goat cheese thing from?
You mean like where does the recipe come from?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming it's ethnic from somewhere.
Yeah, it's from Italy. It's a traditional Italian dumpling. As I said a little earlier, it's normally made from potatoes, rice potatoes that have been mixed with egg and flour. And then, but in this case, we've used goat cheese instead of potato.
And the goat cheese is local. The goat cheese is from where? Waimea.
Can you
Big
buy
Island,
it?
yeah, Big Island goat dairy.
Yeah, from Waimea.
Can you buy that
You can buy
stuff
it.
already
You can
made?
buy it at the farmer's market.
You can buy the goat cheese. You would have to make the dough yourself.
Okay,
I would
we have
think.
our first caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please? Hello,
Hi,
you're on the air.
I'm calling from Waipahu.
Okay, from Waipahu there on Oahu. And your question?
Well, I plan to come to the Big Island.
Okay.
Exactly where is the restaurant?
Well, you know, I can't do any advertising on public television because I got slapped in the hand for it. But if you do come to Hilo, it's on right about the base of Wainui Avenue.
Okay, got you.
Everybody knows where it is.
I was raised there and left there and have not been back for 20 years.
Ah,
So I know the general area you're talking about.
okay.
My question to the cooks, what price range are your dishes? Like the oysters?
I believe the oysters are $8 for a half dozen oysters, depending on the size. Sometimes, if they're big oysters, there'd be less on a plate. If they're small oysters, you would get more.
Well, I'd like to say your display is fabulous,
Thank you.
and I will come to see you.
Thank you.
You
Great.
sound like a reasonable place.
Thank you. It is reasonable. The prices go from like $6 to probably $10 for the appetizers, and probably $14 to at the very highest $26 for the entrees, which is a very expensive piece of filet mignon.
That's very reasonable. You did a wonderful job, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for calling from Waipahu.
trouble.
And again, if you just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, focus on agriculture. And we have this evening one of our restaurants here in downtown Hilo. And we're waiting for some phone calls. I hope someone will help me out this evening. And while we wait for phone calls, do we have any questions from the classroom? Okay, we have a question from the classroom. Go ahead, just press the button and let it go. And
Yeah,
go ahead with
I have a
question.
question about the ahi marinade. How much oil and what kind of oil do you put in it?
Okay, that's the ahi marinade for the
Let's
red
see.
chili and lilikoi marinade.
Where's our notes?
What kind of
What does
oils
it
did
say?
you use, Mike?
You can use extra virgin olive oil or canola oil. Either one would be fine. It's a small amount of oil because otherwise it would become too greasy, right? So you want to keep a minimal amount of oil in most things, unless you want a lot of oil. It would make it too greasy and the flavor would be too oily. So it's not very much oil.
Okay, we have another caller, so will the caller let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Hilo.
Okay, and
I'd
your
like
question.
to know the recipe again to make that dumpling wrapper.
The-
The wrapper. I was going to go get my notes, but I can remember that. Even though I've made about 10,000 of these things.
Okay.
The wrapper is 2 cups of flour, approximately 3/4 of a cup of cold water, and a half a teaspoon of salt. So if when you mix that together it seems too wet, you need to add a little more flour. It's a very dry dough. Otherwise, it's too hard to work with.
And then you want to refrigerate it, wrap
And do
it
you
with...
have to refrigerate it?
You do. Refrigerate it for at least an hour, but 4 to 6 hours is fine. I mean, you could make it in the morning and then use it in the evening. It's fine. After, if it were to refrigerate, it can refrigerate for 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer, but it will start to change color and go bad after too much longer than that. The one thing that's also interesting and good about these dumplings is they can be made ahead of time and frozen, and then boiled frozen, not defrosted, boiled frozen from the freezer at your convenience.
Does that answer the question from Hilo? I guess it...
Yes.
Okay.
And about how many of those wrappers are you able to make?
From the 2 cups of flour and the 3/4 cup of water, you can probably make 30 to 40, depending on exactly how big they are. Because they're irregular,
Thank you very
right?
much.
Okay.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling from Hilo. We have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
Hi, I'm calling from Hilo.
Okay, and your question.
I just turned on my TV and the food looks really good, and I was just wondering what all the dishes were called, the names of the dishes.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
If we can show each individual dish on the monitor, I can tell you what they are.
Okay, we can get our overhead camera on the dishes, and Mike can explain. And we've got our technicians back, busy with the joystick, getting the camera all ready. There we go.
Okay. What we're looking at here is the barbecued oysters. They are a Korean-inspired oyster dish, a baked or grilled oyster dish. These were done on top of the stove. They are oysters on the half shell. In this case, Kumamoto oysters, but any oyster could be used. You can use a Pacific oyster, which are available all over, like all of the stores around here have larger oysters, which we use at the restaurant also, depending on what we can get. You can use any kind of oyster on the half shell.
Okay,
so
Mike, we have another caller, so we'll take the caller. Will the caller let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
I'm calling from Hilo.
Okay, and your question.
What is the dress requirement for the restaurant?
The dress requirement. There isn't a dress requirement. You can come in.
Come with shorts and slippers?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. It's a nice restaurant. You can wear whatever you're comfortable in. But it is a really nice restaurant. It's a very special place for Hilo, actually for anywhere. That restaurant could stand up in any big city.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for calling from Hilo. And do we have another caller? No caller, so why don't we get back to the dishes, and we can explain the next dish. There
I'll
we
move
go.
it along. Okay, so that is the Achiote seared ahi tuna with a Mizuna salad, local greens.
Okay, and maybe we can zoom the camera over or slide the camera over to the next dish. There, we're going to give our technicians back their workout tonight.
Okay, Ryan.
Oh. This is the chicken cooked under a lava rock with hamakua mushrooms and a white wine butter sauce. And that's
Okay, we have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
Hello, I'm calling from Hilo.
Okay, and your question.
I was wondering, what is that white stuff below the oysters?
Oh, it's rock salt.
Oh, rock salt? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you get the question, Ryan?
It was what was underneath the oysters. And it'd be
Okay, can you answer that?
Oh, it's rock salt, yeah.
Okay. All right, we have another question from the classroom. Go ahead.
You can use frozen spinach as well in the dumplings, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
Can you use frozen spinach? The answer is yes.
Okay, can you use frozen spinach for the dumplings? And the answer is yes. Okay, we are coming to you live from the television studios located in the Mookini Library here at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And this evening we have one. Do we have a caller? I hear the phone ringing. It looks like we're getting a caller right now. I think we have a caller on the line.
All right.
Could you let us know where you're calling
right.
from, and go ahead with the question, please.
Hello?
Yes, where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Where are you calling from?
Calling from Waimea.
Okay, and your question.
We just love your restaurant, and I would like to know where you purchased the garnishes from all those micro flowers, etc., etc.
Okay, where do you get the garnish from?
Let's see, the microflowers come from a place called Manuka Farms. I'm not sure where they're located. And all the other stuff we get from the farmer's market in Hilo. It's all locally grown.
Okay, we have another caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question,
I'm
please.
calling from Kaikodo, Kona.
Okay.
Had lunch at the restaurant today. It was outstanding, and it's a very beautiful place.
Thank
Can you run through the recipe for the filling of the dumplings again quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
The filling for the dumplings is shrimp that is chopped, cooked spinach, ginger, garlic, salt. What am I forgetting?
Jalapeno.
Jalapeno. That's it. All mixed together.
Okay, does that answer the question for the caller from
It does.
Kona?
Thank you very
Okay, and do we have another caller? No callers, and we have another 9 minutes to go. So for those of you just joined us, you're watching Agriculture 194C, Focus on Agriculture. And this evening we're featuring one of our local restaurants here in downtown Hilo. And we have with us tonight Mike Fennelly, who's the executive chef there, and also Ryan Angulo, who's also a chef at the restaurant. And they have prepared for us several dishes, and we have another caller. So will the caller let us know where you're calling from, and go ahead with the question, please.
Dr. Fujii.
Oh, I'm glad you called, Harusa Joe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I have a question for Mike Fennelly. Fennelly?
Fennelly,
That's close enough.
He looks like a guy that might know this answer to this.
Okay.
You know, once upon a time, like olive oil and different oil used to become rancid, and nowadays you hardly ever come across rancid oil, especially olive oil. I've been using olive oil to make everything, bread, and even I use to fry eggs, and people tell you don't do it, But it has never, I've never bought olive oil that turned rancid. What are they doing to keep it from turning rancid?
Olive oil shouldn't turn rancid unless it's really old. Like if it's left out in the heat, in the air for a long time, it would turn rancid. But otherwise, there shouldn't be any problem. I mean, I guess the way to avoid that would be to refrigerate the oil, but then it will emulsify, and then before you use it, you have to bring it out to room temperature to make it in a liquid form again. Right?
Right.
That's it.
Does that answer the question, Harusa Joe?
Yeah, Dr. Fujii.
Yes.
When macadamia nut first came out,
yes,
macadamia nut oil was first developed by a kind of big company in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And I visited Mookini Hospital when they were trying to display that macadamia nut oil.
Okay.
And just because I wanted to boost Hawaii, I bought a bottle.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as I brought it home, boy, that thing was rancid.
Really?
It was terrible,
Oh.
And I hate to say that, but
did you keep it refrigerated?
Huh?
Did you keep
no,
it?
It was brand spanking new bottle now, and it was rancid. And I told one of the big 5 companies that manufactured that that thing was rancid.
I bet they'd send you another bottle if you
No, they didn't. But I noticed the other companies that do sell macadamia nut oil, they say they put vitamin E into it, see, to prevent it from getting rancid.
Oh.
And
pass out plates or
macadamia nut
or one gnocchi.
Certain they become rancid, And then boy, when that thing get rancid, macadamia nut candy, boy, that thing is terrible.
Oh, okay.
And I know that certain companies, especially our biggest chocolate company,
Don't mention any names now.
They fried.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't mention names.
All right.
But I've never had a candy, their candy that has became rancid.
Oh, okay.
But on their advertisement, they say they're roasted. See, whereas the rest they fry it.
Someone's getting
And
lost with this.
but that's why I'm very curious about olive oil.
I think the best thing to
Because
do
I've
is
been
call their food scientist and let them know, and I'm sure they'll answer all the questions for you, and I'm sure they'll give you another bottle of macadamia nut oil.
I did call one company that from Kona.
Uh-huh.
When I bought a can of macadamia nut candy, not candy, but the nuts.
Nuts, okay.
They had nothing but bits and pieces in there, and I wrote to them, and then they sent me all kinds of things, and in fact, a company representative apologized to me, you know.
Oh. Did the can say whole nuts or half nuts or pieces of nuts?
Oh, they had not only half nuts. Sometimes half nuts are.
Yeah, you got to look at the
common.
label to see if they're whole nuts or,
But yeah,
pieces.
They were supposed to be whole nuts.
Oh.
Half, either that or they're half nuts.
Okay.
But this one had all bits and pieces in it.
So interesting.
Okay.
So it wasn't the type that sometimes they sell those that are crushed or whatever in small little pieces, and that. But it all comes right back to that oil.
Okay.
I've never had any bad.
All right.
So-called
I'll take that under
olive oil,
advisement.
and I was wondering because they don't put down what they do with that olive oil, you know, like whether they how they get rid of prevent it from getting rancid.
Okay.
And so I just was curious how they prevent it from getting rancid. Besides, keeping them fresh, yeah.
Okay.
Because once upon a time, if you're as old as I am, macadamia, that olive oil had a bad reputation for becoming rancid, even after you buy it from the store.
Okay.
So that's what only comment I have to make, and I thought Mike had something fancy that they do to the oil today compared to the yesterday, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Mike.
calling, Harushi.
You're welcome.
Thank you for
Good luck.
bailing me out. And I want to say thank you for sending me the jicama seeds. I received them. Okay, do we have another caller? We have another caller, so we'll take the next caller. Could you let us know where you're calling from and go ahead with the question, please?
I'm calling from Hilo. I'd like to know if there was any oil in the pan when he put the chicken in.
Okay, when you put the chicken in, did you have any oil in the pan?
Yes, there's about maybe 3 tablespoons of oil just to coat the bottom of the pan. Then the rest of the fat renders out of the skin and then makes it crispy.
Okay, does that answer the question?
Another question.
Okay, go ahead.
The cast iron skillet, did it have oil too?
It was lightly oiled because a cast iron skillet is usually seasoned beforehand with oil and baked in the oven, which makes it slightly non-stick. So we just barely brushed it with oil before the ahi went in.
Are you able to find that kind of pan in Hilo?
Oh yeah, anywhere. I found it at the Army Navy surplus store. That one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for calling from Hilo, and I think we've completely run out of time. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our local restaurant in downtown Hilo, and especially Executive Chef Mike Fennelly and Assistant Chef Ryan Angulo for joining us this evening. We hope that you'll join us next Thursday. We're going to talk about local grown tea and tea in general. So if you're interested about tea, we hope that you'll join us next Thursday evening. So this is Jack Fujii saying thank you for watching, and we hope that you have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you. know if this will close.
You're going to have to cut some of this stuff into little pieces so everyone can have a try.
All right.